That'll be great. So first of all, I want to welcome everyone and say thanks for being here for this evening and for all your hard work and your interest in election reform, because I know everyone here is both very interested and working hard. And I especially want to thank our Take Back Elections folks, because I definitely know how hard they've been working on this. So I'll just briefly introduce myself. I'm Monta Welch, and I have been a lifelong activist, actually, but starting more in earnest about 10 years ago on environmental and climate issues primarily. I founded several organizations, and through all of that, I've learned how to work at all levels of government and successfully with others here in my local community. We've tremendously changed the local dynamics here in my hometown. And I've been involved in shepherding successful state ballot questions, ballot initiatives, and building coalitions. So the organizations that I've worked with and started continue to bear fruit today, and in the areas of racial, social, cultural, economic, and environmental justice. And those are kind of some tag words that we used before more people started using those kinds of tag words, with Bernie coming on the scene, using those frequently, etc. But anyway, I got more involved with this part of my activism after, like many of us, after witnessing the problems with our election and the 2016 Arizona primaries when they blew up there and in your area, several of you on the call. And so at that time, I began writing this language that would be best described as sweeping, comprehensive, 50-state election process reforms that would need to be, an action that would need to be unified. And so it's grown into this group here, I'll Take Back Elections. And the intention is to
join the meeting.
Right now, welcome everyone joining us. Anyway, our intention is to get through with this language, and we have a process of revisions and vetting going on right now, so people can get involved with that process at this stage, and there'll be subsequent different stages, so you can be involved anywhere along the way that you happen to get on board. But so we intend to get this language passed using the ballot initiative, and going that route to ultimately have this be a constitutional amendment in ultimately all 50 states and a federal constitutional amendment. So anyway, we want to welcome everyone who isn't already part of us, like a few of you new callers, to join us. And we thank you for all your work and your interest that brought you here today. I just want to also, before we get into the topic of our meeting, kind of talk a little bit about some housekeeping notes in case not everyone's familiar with Zoom. And for those who are calling, if you're able to download Zoom and rejoin us or do that for future, you would probably enjoy our meetings even better, because we often have visual presentations with our meetings, as we will tonight. And you can hover on the lower bar of your screen if you're joining us by Zoom, and you'll see that you have some options there to be a part of the meeting. The chat box is a place where you can communicate and maybe toss out some questions that they'll be at least in our records. Hopefully we'll get to all your questions, but at least you'll know that they're in the chat box if for any reason we don't, or maybe people have some of the same kinds of questions. And then there's a way to raise your hand there also, so you can look for that. And Adria, thank you so much for being our host and working in the background there, and she'll be muting and unmuting people when it comes time for all of that. And just to let you know, we've been holding weekly and bi-weekly Tuesday evening calls, dividing them into different topics, because we have a lot of things to get ourselves around in this comprehensive reform. So tonight I'll kind of move along to what our topic is, which is going to be on financing of elections. We're going to be looking at the problems and proposed solutions to corruption, and basic overview of the problems and sort of where we are in the process of of working on the language right now, support, if you will, and invite you to join us. So to do that, the person who's heading that up for us is Carl Parrish, and I'd like to introduce him. And Carl is the Arizona State Chapter Leader of Represent Us. That's a nonpartisan organization brought about to help remove government corruption. He's also the vice chairperson of the Maricopa County, that's Arizona, Green Party, and he's active in Wolfpack and People Demanding Action. The day job for Carl is he's a CEO of an Arizona startup called Deeply Digital, where he helps corporations deal with open source software. So I'm going to let Carl take the floor now and give you his presentation. Thanks, Carl, and thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me fine?
I can hear you great.
Excellent. Awesome. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about corruption. What does that mean and why we're approaching it? So to me, the single most important reason why we have an issue of election integrity in the United States today is corruption. And by that, we're essentially saying how our elected officials and our elections are being bought. So we're going to talk a little bit about the more details of what the problem is there, and then what our proposed solutions are, and invite everyone to
join the meeting
and contribute to that. But first, I do want to acknowledge the fact that we're not the first organization to recognize this as being an issue. There have been several different takes on how to solve this problem, and we're going to talk a little bit about the different organizations and the ones that we hope to reach out to, some of the ones that we've gotten really good information from, great ideas, and we'll talk a little briefly about the successes that they've had and how they've achieved those successes so that we can perhaps learn from those. Then we'll go in more depth on our current ideas on how we would go about solving those problems that I will bring up or have brought up earlier, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So anyone who has questions, by all means, put them in the chat room so that we capture those, make sure that they're available for people who watch the recordings later. But I will answer all of them at the end, or I will at least take a stab at them, and some of them I'll have to probably capture and find people who can answer the questions for me. Okay, so just a little bit more about me. Like was mentioned, I am currently the Arizona chapter head for Represent Us, and as such, perhaps the majority of the information I'm going to share is going to be in relationship to Represent Us. So I'm going to leave that for last. I'm also in leadership for the Arizona State for Wolfpack. So we'll leave that to second last. We'll talk a little bit about Wolfpack and what that is. And I'll start by talking a little bit about Democracy Springs. So I am going to share this, and we'll be coming back to that in just a bit. Can you guys see? I want to make sure that's showing. Okay. Now, let me go back here. Nope. Yes. Okay. So, in talking about the organizations that have already begun dealing with corruption, I want to make sure that I bring out and discuss about Democracy Springs. Democracy Springs is a nonpartisan grassroots organization that has been doing amazing work in terms of creating protests and things like that. They've been working really well in coalition with Represent Us, with Democracy Springs, and everyone. And yes, I will definitely put links to all of these organizations as well as my PowerPoint presentation and make sure that those all get added here. Let's see. Reason that is not happening. Did I share it?
We see the main Liberty and Justice for Sale with the Represent Us presentation.
Okay, it is showing. Okay, excellent. All right. There we go. Okay, so Democracy Springs is a movement organization committed to winning fundamental reforms in 2017 to end the corruption of big money in politics and guarantee the rights and votes for all Americans. Last April, they organized over 1,300 people to risk arrest on the steps of our nation's capital, demanding that Congress takes immediate action to get money out of politics and ensure free and fair elections for all. At the DNC, they demanded that the leadership of the Democratic Party, including the presidential nominee and congressional leaders, publicly commit to pass sweeping democracy reforms to overturn Citizens United, establish public-funded elections, and ensure comprehensive voting rights, protections for all Americans within the first 100 days of a new administration, and abolish superdelegates. You can learn more about their strategy at this link here. Is that showing? Oops.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, next I want to talk about May Day. May Day has been doing some amazing work at the local level. May Day is a national grassroots movement to fight corruption by electing candidates that fundamentally reform our campaign finance system, including small donor campaign finance systems and tough anti-corruption measures. You can learn more about this.
Join the meeting.
By city plan at the link here, mayday.us. And then the actual plan is /the plan. We took a lot of good ideas from the May Day plan. I'm not sure that May Day would define themselves this way, but they've become the organization that focuses more at the city level. And they've been doing some really good work at that and have promoted a lot of change there. I'm going to talk a lot about Represent Us, so I'm going to skip that for a moment and we'll go to Wolfpack. Wolfpack is a cross-partisan organization seeking to restore representative democracy by reversing Citizens United and removing the corrupting influence of private money in public elections. You can learn more about Wolfpack's plan to amend our Constitution with proposing convention from the state legislators at this link. I am going to talk a little bit more about Wolfpack because I am very active with Wolfpack here in Arizona. So Wolfpack looked at the civil rights movement and the lessons that we learned there, particularly in regards to what became known as the theory of change. Anyone who is active with the civil rights movement learn the theory of change. Oops. And somehow here we go. This is the slide I want. So the theory of change, you identify what's the specific change that you want. You identify who has the power to give you that change. And then you identify what do we have that they want from us. And by identifying those three things, you can then, the course of action to take usually becomes very apparent. It's to get what they want from us, they can give us this, or we make sure that they don't get that. So typically with elected officials, what we think of as being the motivator for that is that they want votes. And so how do we influence the fact that they will receive votes or not receive votes based off of if they give us what we want? So with Wolfpack, we've done a lot of systematic studying of the Civil War, or the Civil Rights Movement, sorry, I probably said Civil War several times, the Civil Rights Movement, and how we enacted that shift of power. What did it take to actually get the 13th Amendment into the Constitution? And so the goal of Wolfpack is to actually create a 28th Amendment, which would be about free and fair elections. And you can find out the details about the proposed amendment on the Wolfpack website. So given that the issues with our current government, Wolfpack believes that our current legislators will never remove the corruption. They can't. They're too addicted to the issues. So therefore, the only solution is to get 2 out of 3 states to propose an amendment. So if we can get 75% of the states to ratify an amendment, then we win. And currently there's, so 7 states have currently ratified it. And so Wolfpack is making some amazing progress there. One of the states that have voted to ratify is California. So these are not even just small states. There's some really major players happening there, and a lot of really good progress happening in Wolfpack. And so a lot of the ideas that we're taking in Take Back Election is actually coming from Wolfpack and what they did and what was successful for them. Let's get out of this, and I want to switch back to here. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit more about Represent Us, because I have a lot more information on Represent Us to share. We'll look at the problem, we'll talk about the solution, we'll talk about how we'll win, who we are, and what we need to do. So one of the concerns is that pretty much every issue that we have to deal with, regardless of if it's healthcare, if it's privacy, war, education, environment, none of these issues will be addressed correctly or fairly if we don't get corruption out of our system. There's just nowhere to go with that. According to a Princeton University study, and they studied over 20 years, they correlated all of the bills passed by Congress over this period of time. And what they were able to see was that unlike what we consider to be an ideal graph, so on this graph, you'll see 2 axes. We have the likelihood of a bill to be passed, and we'll see how much support that bill has to be passed. So in an ideal republic, you would see a line like this, where the more support a bill has, the more likely it is to be passed into law. Unfortunately, our republic actually does not look like that. So again, this is the ideal line. The more support that a bill has, the more likelihood it is to be passed into law. The reality is, if there's 0 support for a bill, it has approximately a 30% chance of passing into law. If there's 100% support for a bill, it also has roughly about a 30% chance of being passed into law. Again, this is all from a Princeton study. So based off of that data, our concept of our wants, our support, our desires being influential in if a bill gets supported or not is proven to be false. So people who have the idea, the concept that their vote doesn't count, this is the reason why. And until we disrupt this, personally, I don't think any of the other reforms are even possible. So here's a quote from the study. The preferences of the average American appears to have only a minuscule, non-zero, statistically non-sufficient impact upon public policy. Now, that's true for the bottom 90%. Again, here's that 30% line. The bottom 90% of voters, regardless of if there's zero support or regardless of if there's 100% support, there's roughly about a 30% chance of it becoming law. The graph changes significantly, though, if you're in the top 10%. If you're in the top 10% and you have no support for this bill, it has no chance of becoming law. On the other hand, if 100% of the top 10% agrees that a law should be passed, it has a roughly 70% chance of becoming law. So it's still not the idea, but notice that the top 10% has a much closer representation to the idea than the bottom 90%. Here's all the lines on one graph. Very easy to see. So we feel that that's un-American. That's not what we teach our civics students is the important factor. We don't teach in our schools, we don't tell our children that being in the top 10% is the only way to get represented. And yet, that's essentially what has happened to our government. I'm going to stop sharing that real quick and talk a little bit about some specific figures that I think everyone should have access to. And I want to read these directly from the studies so that I don't mischaracterize anything here. So 93% of the time, the candidate with the most money wins. And that money doesn't come from most people. Less than 1% of Americans contribute most of the money in politics. In 2012, federal elections cost over $7 billion. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Since our government has been so busy listening to them, it isn't really representing us. That's, from my standpoint, that is the crux of the problem. Our politicians have to spend 70% of their time raising funds so that they can win the next election, so that they can enforce the ideas that they want. So who are they listening to? They're listening to the 1% of Americans who are contributing 93% of their money. So it represents us. Our proposed solution is what is known as the American Anti-Corruption Act. The American Anti-Corruption Act stops legalized bribery. So lobbyists and special interests can't use donations and job offers to influence politicians. It ends secret money so that we know who's buying political power, and it fixes our broken elections so that people, not the political establishments, are the one in control. The act serves as a model for legislation at the city and state level. On November 8th, 2016, voters in South Dakota made history by approving the first statewide anti-corruption act in the United States. Conservatives and progressives united to fight back against big money, and they won. So I do want to point out, and I want to make sure that it's clearly stated, that the American Anti-Corruption Act and Represent Us is nonpartisan. I think it's something about 79% of voters, regardless of if they were Republicans, Democrats, or independents, have all agreed that corruption needs to stop. So the Anti-Corruption Act serves as a model for legislators at the city and state level. We've gone on to do comprehensive reform in 4 different states, and there's lots of bills that are up for vote this year. We have active chapters all over the United States. But we can only win this battle with a broad base of grassroots support from people across the country and across the political spectrum. So Represent Us being one of the organizations that we see they're in alignment with the values that we have here at Take Back Elections. We're looking at, well, how can we partner with them instead of reinventing the wheel? How can we partner with them and with, for example, Wolfpack, and actually get some things done? So I'm going to discuss a little bit about the options that we've looked at so far in terms of making that a reality. No. So I'm going to scan through these last few slides pretty fast. Again, remember to capture any questions that you have. I'll answer those when we get to the Q&A. So in the United States, currently corruption is legal. Run, vote, govern, corrupt. To win a Senate, you need to basically raise $14,351 per day. Politicians are dependent on the 0.05%. Those are the people who are giving them that $14,351 a day to run. So to get away from that, at Take Back Elections, we're proposing that we have a central account that all the politicians use to run their campaign. They don't have to then spend 70% of their time trying to raise funds on their own. That also kind of helps, you know, when you're spending all your time only talking to a certain group of people because they're the only people who have the funds that you need, the only problems that you're really hearing and understanding are the ones that you're talking to. So we're not trying to propose that, you know, every member in Congress came into the system corrupt. But the system by its nature makes corruption the norm. And so we want to stop that. And a good way to do that is to get the politicians out of the habit of having to ask for funds from the 1%ers all the time. And that's where our central funding account comes into place. Now, we've bounced around several different ideas on how we will fund that central account. And we've got lots of different ideas, and we invite everyone to share any that they might have in terms of that. But I want to talk about the broad reasons why that's important, and some of the reasons and some of the ways that we can make that happen and be successful. So one of the thoughts for many, many years, if you wanted to have a FCC license, you had to allocate a certain amount of your airtime towards education information. We could do something very similar and say, you know what, if you want to have an FCC license, you have to dedicate a certain period of time of your broadcasting to allowing politicians to share their information. And we could give each of those politicians credits that they could then use for their media buys. That doesn't cost the taxpayers any additional money. It vastly reduces the amount of money that the candidates have to spend to run. It can enforce a fair, level playing field. Instead of the 93% of the winners of an election being the people who outspent all of their competitors, we can make sure that everyone has an equal amount of time of airspace. And so this is a system that we can definitely use some help on sanding down the edges and making sure that that we've covered all the edge cases, but it's not really that complicated to enact and to make work.
Right, and we do have a media group actually, but it interrelates to this.
Right, so we've got we have a few things here that are gonna interrelate kind of, and so I'm gonna leave the details about those other systems to the special groups that have been put together for that. You know, corruption is kind of a very broad term. For our group here, we're going to be talking about corruption in terms of elections. What we want to do is we want to stop this cycle of lobbyists bribing politicians, creating special interests, and the special interests going to lobbyists. And then this cycle just continues to go on and on and on. And again, we create this treadmill where the average American isn't being heard. The average American's vote isn't being taken seriously or really even concerned. So the solution is to make corruption illegal. And the template for that is utilizing the American Anti-Corruption Act. Now, the American Anti-Corruption Act is an open source document that allows other organizations to come and pick and choose what part of it they want to support and sponsor. And so we've done that. We've gone through and we said, okay, let's look at the American Anti-Corruption Act. Let's look at what Democracy Springs is doing. Let's look at what Wolfpack has done. And then let's determine what we are going to work on as a team, as a group. So I'm going to pull up our copy of the Anti-Corruption Act and discuss a few of the big points. We're not going to go through the entire thing in this conversation, but we will hit all of the highlights so that people have an understanding of where we want to move towards. Sorry, I have so many documents open right now.
I know the feeling.
Let's see. I think. Nope. Here we go.
I know financing for a lot of people is maybe not their biggest, it can kind of be like accounting and things like that, a little boring for some people, but it's a very important thing. So it's maybe not as exciting, but it's definitely critical.
Okay, I'm just going to pull up the original because I can't seem to find where my notes are.
That's okay.
Yeah, so we're gonna scan through. And I'll show what the website looks like here. So here's anticorruptionact.org. You can check out the videos and find a lot of great information about the Anti-Corruption Act and what's going on. We have a FAQ. But if you actually want to see what the actual Anti-Corruption Act is, you can just click here. And get it. So like I said, several different points that represent us in the Anti-Corruption Act would touch on are being addressed by other special interest groups. So we're going to focus just on financing of elections. And so for that, one of the key things that we have to do is we need to end secret money. So creating transparency in where funds are coming from, creating transparency in what's being spent is vitally important for creating an election system that actually has integrity. To get more people active in our political party, or to get more people active in our political system, it's important that people feel like their voices are actually being heard. And to make that a reality, we need to be able to audit where funds are coming from and how it's being influenced in our voting system, which we currently do. So we want to stop that. Putting all of our funds into a central pot allows that transparency to happen, and also it gets rid of the whole pay to play motivation, because if you're putting funds in, you don't really know what those funds are being supported for, because the organization is actually going to split those funds up equally among the different candidates. So gerrymandering is going to be covered by another special interest group, but it's a very important component. So here's one of the key things: change how elections are funded. We want to make sure each registered voter gets small credits that they can use to make contributions to candidates, and agree to fundraise only from small donors. This is the key bit. It changes the current dynamic that I was showing you, that graph that shows that, the 10%ers, they're being heard. It's the rest of us that are not, and that doesn't seem to have any impact on our electors. Open primary question is an important question that needs to be addressed. And again, that's going to be a different small group. Now here, this I believe touches on our group. It's also going to touch on the media group, but I think it's going to be a key reason why politicians are going to be able to function from that central fund account because the FCC's regulation is going to allow them to have free access to media. We want to strengthen the powers that different organizations have, specifically the Federal Elections Administrator, to, although there's currently a bill right now to remove the FEA.
FEC. Yeah, the FEC.
The Federal Election Administration.
Mm-hmm.
And to give them, to make that empowered so that they can actually impose penalties when there's violations. So currently, even when, so most of the corruption is actually legal, but even when it is illegal and someone gets caught at it, they just get a slap on the wrist because none of the organizations that are supposed to do anything about it really have the teeth to stop it. We want to make sure that that changes.
Right. Definitely.
And okay, that's a good rundown of the American Anti-Corruption Act and how we are going to work with it in Take Back Elections. But by all means, I'd love to hear any feedback if you have any questions or thoughts on other areas that we can address. So I'm going to look and see if we've got any questions.
Well, I noticed your comment in the chat, Bruce, about removing that link to the Princeton study. And, you know, we should start maybe downloading and doing other things to save this, these kinds of important pieces of information that we need, because I've noticed that too, and we just kind of need to start downloading and saving these things, I think. But that was really good. Thank you for that overview. We're going to be working in our financing small group and invite anyone who's interested in this part of the comprehensive reforms to both speak up tonight if you're on the call, or join us if you're maybe going to watch this video later on and weren't able to make the call. But you can join us in a couple of different ways. We'll make that clear. Certainly one way right now is going to be by touching base with us on the Facebook group. But that was a good presentation. And there are a few things, you know, that we will be maybe modifying, but a lot of what the Anti-Corruption Act has, we agree with. So we're willing to just use their language, and happy and thankful that they have it. So would anyone like to raise your hand? If so, remember how you do that. And we can go to questions and comments. Feedback.
Hey guys, hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Where are you calling from in your name, if you would?
I'm in Nevada right now.
Oh, are you John?
Yeah, John. Is the background noise? It's not too much?
It's good. I think we can hear you.
Okay. So, okay. We heard about Wolfpack, etc. And this group is in favor of a constitutional amendment that will basically take care of this issue, the election issue, once and for all. We know an amendment made it illegal for a human to own another human. We know an amendment made it so women could vote. And those issues are gone. Those issues are taken care of. And we don't have all the time in the world to sit here and, do what needs to be done, which is secure the electoral process from private interests. So the only way that can be done only way that can, an amendment, whatever that amendment is, however it's worded, we won't go into the weeds on that right now. But for our 28th Amendment to secure the electoral process from private interest, that amendment can only formally be proposed by either the Congress or by a convention of the states. At present, there are a half dozen or more national groups calling for a federal convention. They're calling for an Article 5 convention. So the problem here is that these groups, they are proposing their pet amendments. For instance, there's a balanced budget amendment people. These are people that believe that a balanced budget amendment is going to make everything okay. That amendment has nowhere near 75% approval. So even if it was proposed at a convention, it would never be ratified because 75% of the people don't think that's a great idea. But what more than 75% of the people do think it's a great idea is, hey, nice toilet flush.
Yeah.
Is that put your phone on mute on that. That's like bad etiquette. But what people do agree on is that we need an amendment to do such things as publicly fund elections, to absolutely remove the corrupting influence of private money on public elections, end of gerrymandered districts, et cetera, et cetera. The point I'm trying to make here is until we get to a convention, whatever you believe is the best idea, until we get to a convention, we are informally discussing amendments. Right now, tonight on the forum, we're informally discussing amendments. We need to get to the place where we are formally discussing them, where we can persuade other Americans why and how this or that amendment is best for us at this time. So I made a comment to the group, the Electoral Justice Group, and I put across this idea, hey, why don't you guys start calling for an Article 5 convention? And the response was that, oh, well, we have people, we're talking to people about that. We're finding out about it. But the fact of the matter is, because I've been on this for a number of years, is that the congressional records show that 49 states have cast hundreds of applications for the Article 5 convention, and one Congress after the next just pretends they don't know what they're doing. They pretend they don't know what it means. Then you have groups like Wolfpack and Balanced Budget Amendment groups saying, "Oh, well, we're going to cast new applications. Oh, we're going to get the state legislatures to cast new applications." So that's not where it's at. That's not where it's at. The fact of the matter is, states are already legally satisfied the convention clause. So we're currently living in a state where the legislative branch is illegally denying the states and the people the right to formally discuss amendments. So if election justice is really for election justice, or any of the people in this group really want election justice, guess what? Until we get a convention call out of the Congress, nobody's going anywhere. And history tells us where this whole show is going. We have a corporate blitz with the Trump administration putting in Goldman Sachs people, et cetera, et cetera. So we got a corporate blitz going down right now. So if electoral justice people want to get it together and help towards the objective solution, then they need to have a platform saying it's time for an Article 5 convention. Everyone's got a good idea, but until we all get to the table, nobody's going anywhere.
John, thank you. You know, we had an initial meeting, and you'll be able to review these meetings on our website here. We'll talk about that later tonight. But our strategy, and I appreciate, and you're absolutely right, that this is not going to happen out of federal. And we may, right now we're still writing language, but maybe we could, in a parallel track, be asking for something, or I think that we're getting ready to be at another stage. And you're kind of talking about a stage that we know we're looking at, we're approaching, and we can lay some foundation for, and you might like helping us with that. And what we did talk about, though, is as we pass this state by state into the state constitutional amendments via a ballot initiative, that those states will start dramatically turning around. They'll be sending people with different mindsets to federal. And that doesn't mean we would want to rest on our laurels necessarily. We would still be discussing it, and the Constitutional Convention is a tool on the table. Some people right now, especially in the climate we're in right now, are very afraid of a constitutional convention because they are afraid.
Okay, Laura, hang on, excuse me. Americans have been taught to be afraid of a quote-unquote constitutional convention for over 60 years now, right?
Let me ask you, in a constitutional convention, is there any way parties that can they address anything other than what is on the agenda? Can they introduce anything? Can they amend it? And I guess people are thinking.
No, they can't amend it. So basically there's two words that we're dealing with here. The first word is proposal, and the second word is ratify. So anyone can propose whatever they want, but whatever they propose, you're going to have 3/4, 75% approval before that proposal can become law. And the reason the framers made ratification a 3/4 requirement, it's a political principle, and it means that whatever the idea is, it has to have all the conservatives signed on, plus at least half the liberals, or all the liberals signed on, plus at least half the conservatives, i.e., meaning that only amendment proposals with overwhelming and broad support have any chance of being ratified. So the fears of the convention are unfounded. There's nothing to fear going into a convention that requires 75% approval. And what that 3/4 approval means, what it means is that either the status quo will remain or we'll find some idea that's going to improve it.
I want to make sure
there's no reason to fear the process. And in fact, we should fear more than anything what's going down right now in Washington, D.C. How long do you think we have before history tells us what's going to happen?
I want to make sure that we bring up a point. As you guys are, one of the things that we've learned at Wolfpack is to make sure that we stress that we're calling for a limited amendment convention.
Guess what? A limited convention is impossible, because if you try and limit a convention, you now have alienated a lot of the people you need to bring with you in order to have that convention happen. Secondly, to limit a convention is to squelch someone else's right to what they believe is the correct amendment.
They could.
So Wolfpack, contrary to what you may understand, Wolfpack is actually a grassroots group saying that they want a convention for their pet amendment, but their whole, basically the machinations behind the group is to have a stance that we need a limited convention, and a limited convention will never happen. It won't happen. So I'm here, so I got to go attend to some other things. But I want to let the folks know on the call, what I'm saying is not my subjective opinion. This is objective fact based on years of research. There's a group, it's called Friends of the Article 5 Convention. If you just type in Article V Convention, you'll find them. They're one of the top ones on the Google thing. And they have all the information there. But the fact of the matter is, I guess I'll leave you with this. I don't want to be rude, but the fact of the matter is, it's convention or bust. Either this society here and now within the next 18 months is going to have a convention, or private interests and corporations are going to privatize everything, and the people that come after us are it's unpleasant to think about. So anyway,
join the meeting.
I do agree that a constitutional amendment is a requirement. that we need to have a convention, and we need to have it soon, or the concept of America as America isn't going to exist. I think that there are several different approaches to that, but I look forward to finding out more about the information that you provided.
And thanks for bringing it up, John. We will continue. That's what we do, basically. What we're doing tonight is have these kinds of discussions. Usually they're in small groups within a presentation, and then they, again, this is an appropriate place to bring it up. And so I hope you'll join the group. Maybe help us work on this.
Okay, I am part of the group, and I'll look forward to future messages and stuff. And thanks so much, everyone, for calling in and allowing me to express those views.
Can you give the website one more time in case anyone didn't get it?
Friends of Article 5.
Friends of Article 5, right. Okay.
Yeah, Friends of the Article 5.
It's Article V.
Right, Article V, capital V, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, guys. We'll talk again on a future call. Thank you very much.
Going forward.
So which group is that discussion being held within? This is Paul Thomas.
Well, that would have to be in our strategy group.
Okay.
The very first group is about our strategy. How do we accomplish this? So that's the group. That's the group.
Well, I was going to add. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, add.
I just wanted to make the. I'll go. I just wanted to make the point that what he said may be right, but the problem is that right now, if the ratification is done by borders of the state legislatures, and birds of the state legislatures are basically corporate Republicans, and the rest are some portion corporate Democrats, they're going to get to that 75% mark, but with the corporatist agenda. So that's one of the things I brought up when I discussed that issue with you, was that the fear that domination would hold true. Right.
Yeah, we really haven't, we felt like that is a tool. We're not taking it away from the table, but we kind of are looking at, are there other ways to get around what this dilemma is that we see ourselves in, as you just, to the point that you're making. That's why I said that we would hope that, as quickly as we can, finish our writing and pass these in some of these states, start seeing some change, and see how fast we can pass them. If we can work with some of these other organizations, we might be able to pass them in, as many states as possible, as quickly as possible. We are already looking at, even though we're writing, we're still looking at our strategy too. And we actually will be you'll be able to learn more about that on our website. We're already looking at what are the top handful, 5 or 6 states that are most actively engaged in really having a lot of success in their states with ballot initiatives. Those states that are more active around it, and more successful, even though there are about 24 to 26 states that have the initiative. Some of them are not the direct ballot initiative, though, because that's what we are focusing on, the direct ballot initiative for an amendment. And the reason we're focusing on amendment is certainly in the state, we can save the states, and as we get enough states, those states can save the rest of us, and they can do it in a couple of different ways, including when we get those representatives, up at Capitol Hill, and from those better states, better functioning states, as well as we can potentially work with a smaller number of states that may have liberal enough representation that we can work with their legislatures. So we're not completely disregarding the rest of the 25 some states that, don't have the ballot initiative. But we know this is our best bet for a basic strategy, the overall basic strategy. And yet all the tools are on the table, including a limited, again, we had the same terminology as Wolfpack, a limited constitutional convention that John, who just left us, seems to think that's kind of not fair for some reason. But as you're pointing out, Paul, that the fact that, you know, we wouldn't want it to be sort of overtaken. We wouldn't want to call a convention if we don't feel that we would have success with our
With
policy.
the agenda that we have, yes.
So
And
we
that's
have to
why I
make
think
a lot
right now we don't want it.
And we have to wait.
But just
I think somebody brought up, and I think it's an important point to make sure it's said, that, you know, 75% sounds like a big number until you realize that 93% of the voters agree that, you know, things need to change. So with 93% of the population looking for change, I don't think 75% is impossible.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be hard. I mean, it's going to be easy, but it's not impossible.
Well, and that's
But
true.
I think it's state legislators who do the voting, if I recall correctly, right? And so it's the representatives of the individual states at the legislature level that join the convention, I believe, and they're the ones who do the voting, if I recall.
Right, but they're unlike our national legislation. They're a little more tied to local interests than our federal friends. So
That's probably true, but ALEC has rolled out, you know, voter ID laws in 32 states at the state level, which is what concerns me, that they're amenable to the corporatist message more than the popular message.
Yeah. ALEC,
So I don't mean to cut you off, but that was just that I thought about that, and I thought, well, they should be more responsive to people at that level. But ALEC is a winner in so many states.
That's true. That's why we have to focus on the ballot initiative. And even if they try to make it harder for us, we just have to, you know, we have to just pull together. You know, we have to send neighboring states that want this for their own state, that aren't working on it themselves at that same moment over, you know, across in the region to help, you know, collect these signatures. We're going to have to do all kinds of mass organizing, like basically we did for those who were working behind Bernie, because his campaign was historic and showing a different way of raising money. Again, that is part of our conversation, but we don't even, you know, that's something else we can discuss in our group, but that's not what we're going to ask people to depend on in our group. But I'm just pointing this out because I do know that people helped him in unique and mass kinds of ways, by, you know, phone banking from state to state to state, you know, from all over the U.S. And, you know, whenever he would move to a primary race in different states. And so in a similar kind of fashion, we can support these ballot initiatives from all across, you know, all 50 states can support, you know, however many states get out of the gate, you know, to try to initially pass this. And I think that the more people learn and know about it, you know, we'll pick up some steam and it might become easier, although it's not, as Carl said, it's not going to be easy. We just have to understand what we're facing. And we even have a whole kind of a strategy actually for messaging, for boots on the ground, for the phone banking, for people coming in from surrounding states and region, all of those things it's going to take, because we will have to counter the corporate message and money that will flood the TV waves. I know I've mentioned it before, but I'm going to mention it again because it's the right example. When California tried to pass the GMO food labeling law, they were looking in really good position right up to about 2 weeks before time to vote. And they couldn't make it because, you know, the money just got dumped. And I have myself watched, you know, the politics and on TV, you know, some of these ads are so slick that if I didn't know better my own self, I would think it's a good idea. I mean, you know, I'm telling you, and we're going to be that's going to be exactly part of our messaging, because we're going to be going door to door. We're going to be saying, you're not going to see very many ads for us, and you're going to have to be one of us, because you can see that you are one of us and not one of them. Here we are at your door. And you're going to have to tell your friends and neighbors. And when you see those thick ads, you're going to have to say, just like I just said, if I didn't know better, I'd think that was a good thing, but I know better, So we are going to have to be smart in our messaging, and we will be. We're going to have to fully pull together because we understand the stakes, as the gentleman, John, who was just here, said. We understand the stakes. They're high. We don't have a lot of time, and we need to get this language finished. So the more people who can help in any of the groups, but, this one, of course, tonight is on financing. We need your help. So, and, but we have all these kinds of parallel things going on all together, and all the different aspects of what it's going to really take, because we can fix 2 or 3 things, maybe even, we can maybe even fix 3/4 of it and still lose because they have so much power. That's why we have this comprehensive thing. We've got to pretty much fix the whole thing. We have to message it simply, so that when we go door to door, people get that, yes, this is a big comprehensive thing, but I don't have to understand every detail. I just have to understand that simple thing, that unless we fix the whole thing, the corporate elite can still, smash us down, even just with 1/4 of a window, because they're that powerful. So that's what we're doing here. And however, to that point, for people who just, can't agree, yes, we have this language. Yes, it's going to be unified. It's not going to be exactly open source to the point that people can take it and change it, because we need it to be unified. The reason for that is because when we do get to the federal, the states have to have the identical language, each one, because that's essentially them already having their vote. The legislature has to say, it's in my state constitution. I guess I can't really go to this convention and vote against it very easily. So that's another pressure for if we have to take that route. And it's probably smart. Maybe we go ahead and apply for it when we're ready, but we don't have our language ready, and we probably have to have our language ready when we apply for it. I don't know that detail because I've been working so hard on lots of this. But if anyone wants to look into that, please do report back. And, we could obviously apply for it. It would basically happen if we pushed it. Or in the case, if Wolfpack does have some success, we certainly are going to have to do everything we can to make sure that it doesn't go the wrong way. And it might be that we could piggyback on, who knows, because that's what we're worried about other people doing, or we're worried about them not, doing the ratification. Those are kind of the 2 main issues I see in that. Anyone else for the floor? Looks like we're kind of quiet.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, and could you please say who you are, where you're from?
Hi, my name is Anitra, and I live in Los Angeles. And I actually just saw this posted from Election Justice USA earlier today, and I'm sorry, just like 10 minutes ago, and I probably missed most of the discussion. Just
That's
wondering if there's any way somebody's just give me a quick recap for how you guys
Having
are
trouble hearing you.
looking back at our elections. Uh-oh. Can you hear me now?
Speak and we'll see.
Okay, let's
Go ahead.
go outside. There's bad reception here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
That sounds better, I think.
Okay. So I'm not sure what you just heard of that, but I just got on the call 10 minutes ago. I was just wondering if there's any recap you guys can discuss for those who couldn't be on the call earlier.
Well, you're lucky because we record our calls. And,
Oh, great.
And they're going to be, if you can hang on with us till the end of our meeting, you'll be really happy to find out exactly where you can go to view those. And as soon as we finish up with what you missed, and you can kind of maybe check out the chat if you're not used to the Zoom meetings and see a few of the questions there. We got a little bit off of track on our financing focus to a strategy of how we're going to get it done focus, and that's kind of okay. But we're talking about financing and leveling the playing field. But you can go later, and we're going to give you a tour of our website here in a minute. But that was
Okay.
a bit of a surprise, but that's where you're going to be able to find that. But if there are any other comments or thoughts about the financing for Carl, or questions, or feedback, or anything else on the financing piece right now, please share those thoughts at the moment, and raise your hand if you're on the chat, or if you're on the call on the Zoom part of the meeting, or even speak up if you're on the phone, however, or post something in the chat, and we'll keep it in our notes for our meetings going forward in the financing group.
This is Paul with a question about the Zoom. Because I don't have much bandwidth, I don't join the Zoom. Are you going to post the video segment?
Yes.
Or are you going to post that Facebook page?
Yes, tonight you're going to be able to access those from here out, Paul, in a timely manner.
Yay. And you did put the others up, or not?
Yes,
If you were going to let me know.
Yes, they're all going to be there.
Okay.
So you'll be able to catch up with the visuals, and or share the link so people can catch up with us. Period. Just if they're new.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you too. Anyone else with any comments or questions or feedback for Carl or the group on financing? Well, Carl, you did a great job. Thanks for the presentation, and thanks for heading up that group, because as I said, it's kind of maybe not the most exciting group to some degree, but it's extremely critical. So I'm going to now ask Adrian. I'm not sure if Kate is on the call. Is Kate on the call? Okay, Kate and Adria, and maybe if you both have your audio on, and if you want to do a screen share, or however you want to do the tour, Adria, and you can both kind of pipe in and help give us a tour, because tonight we are doing a soft launch, if you will, of our website that we'll continue working on and building out. But we thought it was finally good enough, and we were kind of under a bit of pressure, yes, to get these videos out in a place that will start bringing people to where they can also have a different way of connecting in with our working groups. We haven't really tried those just yet, but we're looking to see how they work, and as we get the job done in our working groups, we will sort of repurpose those working groups to be at our next step of how we're going to work through getting this on the ballot and those kinds of things. So they'll be, kind of continuing to work for us there. So I'm going to turn this part over to Adria and Kate, and I guess Adria, you can take the lead, and Kate can chime in however you all want to, but I'm going to let you take it away. And yay, thank you guys for your hard work, and here we are with the soft launch of our website, takebackelections.org.
All right. Well, hi, everybody. I just want to say ahead of time, I'm not a web designer. I got involved in this for the same reason that I'm involved with the rest of it, because as a citizen, I realized that my vote was stolen, and I'm not happy with what I've learned since then. So I wanted to be a part of changing that. So with that said, here's the website. I think the learning curve has been
we
not
think
too
she's
bad.
done a great job, and Kate's helped us a lot too.
And let's see.
Feedback. That's our new logo, people. And all the work.
Here we go. Okay. Yeah, Kate did the logo. It's beautiful.
Can you repeat the URL?
Yes, it's takebackelections.org.
Okay.
And so the first page kind of just talks about what we're trying to do. And, I'll just kind of go through that quickly, because you can go to the site and read all of that stuff. But generally, we're going to try to put the future meetings here, so you can look at the dates and join those or share those. Whatever the advertisement is for the meeting, the next meeting that's upcoming right here. And that should be on every page of the site. And then we have the basic strategy. So again, you can go to the site and read that. Right here we have a glossary, because we felt that there's a lot of election integrity groups working on things, and people are often using the same words to mean different things. So it's difficult to, come to a consensus when everyone thinks they're talking about one thing and, they're talking about a few different things. So if you just hover over any of these words that are kind of underlined like that, then you get the glossary definition of how we're using them in this work. And then the outline that some of you are familiar with, because we've worked from it before, and it's basically kind of the skeleton that everything else is going to be built on. Was there somebody had a question or something, or?
Oh, I was going to say something. Now I've almost forgotten.
Well, I can say this is Kate here. I've helped work on this website, and there will be something added to the opening page at the bottom, a kind of how this page works, or how this website works, which will describe to people how they can plug in and what we're doing, and make it as a tool. The website itself is a tool for people to be able to work on different aspects of this project.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. The wording, we haven't quite finished getting the approval on the wording for that yet, but yeah, that will be added over the next day or two. This is going to be the archive of the conference call videos, so all of the conference call videos will be available to view right here. And then to the point of what Kate was just talking about, this website for members of the different groups is where we can all actually do our work from. So you would join, you would log in, and then you would join whatever groups, working groups that you wanted to be a part of. And each working group has a forum where you can post topics and people can reply. So, some of whatever those groups are working on can get hashed out right there through the dialogue. There's a live chat availability. So if you have, more than one member that's online, you can actually live chat right here on the side. And let's see, I think that's about it for now. But you can register and log in using different social media platforms. You can use Facebook or Google, or I think Instagram, or a couple other, Twitter, to register and log in.
And also you have the ballot initiative page, don't you?
Oh yeah, forgot about that page.
That's a good page.
Yes. Yeah.
It goes with the strategy. You have it right after the strategy.
Yeah, the ballot initiative page. So this is kind of an interactive map. As we have more resources for each state individually, there will be links where you can click on that state, and it will show you links to how to do the ballot initiatives in those individual states. This is kind of just about the ballot initiatives, and some states allow you to initiate amendments, some states only allow you to initiate statutes, some only referendums, and some both. So this kind of talks about that. And then there's also this page, which is to sign up for the different state teams. And so we kind of just went through and looked at like the smaller states. We asked for maybe 5 people for those different states. The larger states like California would need more people to sign up to start that process going in their state. So if you or if anybody that you know wants to sign up for an individual state or for a nearby state, please send them to take those slots so that we know that we have some core ground teams there. And then I left 100 spots open for other at the bottom. So these are people that maybe don't care, which state they're working on or would help toward all states or whatever. So.
That's great. And we'll probably be, again, building this site out even more and learning how to use it ourselves. We haven't really started up the work groups just yet, but we'll try to get started and learn how to work those. And I know there was someone on the call earlier who asked how she could get started. I don't know if it's a she. And I'm not sure if that individual's still on the phone or still on the call. They were calling in, I believe, rather than joining the other way. But the question was, I don't have a microphone. What is the best way to begin this process in my small rural town? I don't know if that person's still on the phone, but or on the call. Okay. Maybe hopefully we can recontact that person or they'll just join our Facebook group. But I did notice that question and we didn't really answer that. And I suppose we did, well, we kind of answered it towards the end here of maybe a little bit in the Represent Us or how they want to do with Take Back Elections towards the end of how we would all really be engaged one way and another to help these different states get the ballot initiatives passed. And if that individual lives in a ballot initiative state, they're lucky. They'll be able to have a chance to do this. So if not, they'll be able to have a chance to help, and they're still lucky that the rest of us are doing it and they can help whatever. But that would be just, something I had forgotten that we didn't maybe address earlier. So thanks a lot. I hope everyone will kind of visit the website, and we'll put up what Kate mentioned and Adria also about the kind of like a little roadmap to using the site, interacting with the site there. And
I just want to say that this is as a work in progress. We encourage people's comments and suggestions about how it's working. It is going to evolve as the whole project evolves. So,
and I think they can post comments if they want to, the feedback either on the blog, or they can join the Facebook group and post some comments there. They can join and start in with a working group. And also, we're going to have a donate button somewhere, and I think we do have. So that's going to be, because we're going to have to start raising money to ourselves to help these ballot initiative states get this going. So that's what our funds would go primarily for. So that's pretty much it for this meeting, unless, does anyone have any other questions or comments before we sort of...
Well, I just wanted to say, I was trying to unmute myself earlier when we were talking about finance, and I'm driving home, so it's a little hard to do everything. At any rate, what I wanted to say about finance is that we've got exactly what it was presented beautifully earlier, but we also, in terms of the work we need to do with our own research, is how this particular initiative that we are constructing will what it will cost. We have to do the research on what we're doing and what it will cost to put it in action. And so that's a whole lot of research right there. So that's the other end of the finance that we will delve into further down the line.
Right, and we do have an organization that just kind of came to light but there are others, and there are also track records with people who have passed ballot initiatives that might kind of fall into a similar category, that you can get an idea of how much it'll take to pass the ballot initiative. But then there's the additional layer of when you do pass a ballot initiative, most states require, probably all of them, and we will include it, what our estimated cost to the taxpayer for implementing what we're asking them to implement would be. So that's even another financial piece as well. So thanks for bringing those matters up, Kate. And we're glad you joined us, even though you're driving, so be safe. So anyway, I'm glad everyone joined us. Thank you guys so much, and for kind of hanging out through this. One other part of what we're doing, you know, some folks might find it interesting. It's very vital, though. So I see Nancy and several of you from Arizona. Thank you guys for being on. I have a funny feeling you might be one of our first out the gate folks with the ballot initiative, and certainly we're all going to want to have it be successful and help you. And can't hear Nancy. She's talking. Unmute. Hello, hello. Love to hear what you
We're going to be very busy, it looks like. So much stuff. Can you hear me? You can't hear me.
I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. Tonight's meeting really pulled a lot of things together in my mind. It was a very good meeting, and I appreciate this. We're going to be very busy, it looks like.
Oh, yes. This is a major undertaking. Like Adrian says, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Certainly.
We all just have to get that through our heads and know that we're going to keep putting one foot in front of the other, because truthfully, we really don't have any other choice. And like the other gentleman said, we do have a sense of urgency as well. So however many people we can bring on board that can help in whatever way possible, we need to. We need to start gathering our friends. We need to start building all the support we can get. You know, really this part here about, you know, it's been a tremendous mental work. It's been a mental marathon already, much less to the other stages that we are going at. And we certainly need anyone with some good brain power and some good thoughts to help us get across the finish line with this, and maybe some good editing skills, and maybe Paul or people who might know legalese that would just kind of check us, you know. And yeah, we're going to have all the talent we can bring to the table. So thanks, Nancy, for being with us.
Thank you.
And thanks everyone for being with us. You guys are awesome. And you know, so next time, bring some more friends on. And
yeah, I'm going to share your work with the local Indivisible group. They're very active here. So
and
maybe
that's someone else we need to,
folks there.
Yeah, that's someone else we need to and will partner with. But, you know, we're really kind of at this a very nitty-gritty critical stage, because everything that happens afterwards is going to depend on the quality we produce right here.
True.
And
True.
Really, you know, I kind of see this as a reform that hopefully is good enough that, you know, it will take society into the next couple hundred years.
Certainly needed.
Yes. Defending democracy. So thanks for being on the call. Carl, thanks for an excellent presentation and all your work in this group. And we'll just keep marching forward, everybody.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
All
for
right.
sharing.
All right.
Have a good night.
Yes, thanks,
You
Paul.
too. Bye.
Bye-bye. I know. Oh, shoot. I know, Bruce, we are going to be having, right now, Joanne would be on the call, but she's videoing, live streaming one of the groups there in Arizona who's having a demonstration of the hand count for ranked choice vote. And so I haven't had a chance to review what you've said, but we are planning to put on another meeting on ranked choice vote. If we want to bump it into, if we don't think we have a whole meeting's worth of information on that, we'll add, something else onto that. But I'll like to probably show that one link that you shared with me, and because I think sometimes it's really worth watching those things as well, because if you can't find the expert, maybe those would be good. And I do think I have finally gotten some response from someone who was somewhat put up as a potential expert, and I'm looking at maybe bringing him in if I find that he is enough of an expert that he would. I think he's more of a proponent, but I mentioned we'd want to know the pros and the cons, and so I don't know. I'm looking still at somebody who might want to help us flesh that out a bit more even. But our big thing was to show this hand count, and indeed Carl is also supportive of the ranked choice voting, as is the Anti-Corruption Act people, because it's actually in that. I told Carl that that's the one piece we weren't decided on yet, that we were looking at, all the different voting methods right now, that we hadn't made a final decision, but that we were very firm on that we had to be able to hand count it with some human hand count with a reasonable sensibility that we could be successful. And I didn't go into all of it, but I think our next meeting on that does have to take on to all the points that you already know, Bruce, and that some of us here know, that we need to, if it isn't going to open up the field anymore and it's going to be limited to 3 candidates for the fact of being able to count it, that seems counterproductive to its very stated purpose. So, there's just so many things about it that I'm not real positive about personally, but I'm trying to stay open and willing to, be wrong, like I always am willing to, look at anything. But on the other hand, I don't know. We're just going to have to see. But that's what I wanted to mostly show last time that we did talk about it, is the difficulty of the hand count and the time consumption of it. So we'll see, because she's going to go to this meeting and tape it, and we might view that even. We need to unmute. We can't hear you.
Oh, thanks. Are you talking to me?
I'm talking to all of you, but particularly on the ranked choice vote.
I'm pretty much comfortable with muted all the time. I have a question.
Oh, Bruce, you can unmute too. And what's your name? What the lady with the question?
Oh, okay, wait a second. Is unmute with the pound sign?
Well, you're unmuted. You're fine now. We can hear you. I just don't. Oh. What is your name and where are you from? And then Bruce, you can speak if you want to unmute.
I've been on past calls before too, but I think it's with these same people. I think I'm still with my group here. I voted down in California this past election, so that's why I got involved. I've since moved back to Oregon, so I'm going to participate in Oregon election stuff instead, which I think is going to be easier. But anyway, I guess I'm curious about the initiative, the ballot initiative, but you were talking about something that made me have a question. What were you just talking about? Oh, the timing. So is this group part of the group with Adria Ross and Michelle Vincent?
Yes, you just got the tour of, well, you didn't get to see the tour of the website, but you got to hear Adria Ross, who
good. Okay.
Made our website. So yes, you're with the right group.
Okay, it's all new, but when I looked at the groups, I'm like, hey, that looks like what we were talking about splitting off into these groups. So that's good. The thing about the hand counted, I know early on in these conference calls, like actually before even a bunch of people I know got on, back in August or September, we were talking about hand count and how actually talking about financially that it's actually more cost efficient to do it that way, that the machines having upgrades and, you know, whatever the costs are, rent or purchase or whatever, when you consider all that the cost was actually not that much different. Like,
Right.
I noticed that question comes up a lot. Like, people are always saying that. And if you think about it, like the time-consuming task in the first place, if you do it right the first time with maybe a machine backup or printout, you know, like things like that. But the hand counting, if it's done with the right coordination, I guess, it can be done just as effectively. I know that Oregon used to hand count the last time I voted here. They were still paper hand counted with the counters right in front of you at the precinct.
Oh, good. Well, a couple of things about that. First of all, I hope you're a member of our Facebook group, because we have a different way of communicating with each other over there. So you probably want to join the Facebook group it's called Take Back Elections, in case you're not sure of the name of the group. But you might.
Oh, no, I'm not in there. How did I miss you guys? Okay.
What's your name?
Yeah, what is your name?
My name, Colleen.
Oh, Colleen. You know what? I accidentally just now, I saw that you registered on the website, and I accidentally, I don't know, somehow got rid of it. So can you do it again?
Oh, no. Okay.
We're learning to
I just activated it.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah.
I just activated.
Okay.
Yeah, we're learning to use our own website, and at least we know how to use Facebook groups while we're in the learning curve. So you might want to cover your bases.
Okay, you're in there.
Are you guys were we also the ones talking about the MeWe social app instead of Facebook? Is this group at all trying to connect also on a different site?
Well, there is another group that talked about some kind of legislation back in August, and that's probably election justice, I think.
It is. Thank you.
Yes.
That's the clarification I needed. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Because that was supposed to be another safety net to have the MeWe group.
Right, yes.
We're not that savvy to get into MeWe.
Now, months later, after having joined it, I finally went on there and started looking around. And it's really not that hard at all. It's not too bad.
The one thing about all of these things, including the MeWe, it's kind of like at first when you have to try to migrate to something else, when you really need already be in place and it's not really in place, it's just really hard to function in these things that aren't in place. So, you know, but to your point, Take Back Elections is working on, since I think you just joined late, maybe, we're working on comprehensive 50-state sweeping election process reform. It's going to take care of all the different parts. Everything that's wrong, we're fixing it. And so I don't really know of anyone who's doing that right now. And in fact, we worked with Election Justice back at that time because they talked about having this language that they were going to pass. And we said, well, you know, just like in this meeting earlier, for those who were in when you watched the recording, you know, we talked about maybe collaborating or using someone else's language. But I tried to search it out, and no, they didn't really have language. They were thinking they would, but they didn't have it. And so I continued working on this language, and gradually we started this group because there really isn't anyone out there doing this full comprehensive language. The closest that we could find really with very many of the things we're working on is really the Represent Us, and Carl is in our group, and he happens to be the head of Represent Us in Arizona. So, and I think, Bruce, that Carl, oh, I see, no, that's a earlier post. But anyway, we're really the only ones doing this kind of comprehensive language in all the different areas. So you're probably in the right group at this point, if that's what you were.
I think I am. I think so.
That's what you were interested in before. So, and we have some members from Take Back Elections. Or from Election Justice and Take Back Elections. Some of those people are in our group.
I was thinking maybe my friend Michelle got in there too, because she was Watch the Vote or Bernie Dallas, Watch the Vote, Election. We basically just joined anything and everything we could to figure out how to help.
Do you mean Michelle Vincent? Is that who you mean?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know her. Yeah.
I
don't know if she's joined the group or not.
Yes, she has.
Oh, she has. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can go and see who the members of the group are, when you go onto the page, if you want to see if some of your friends are there. But you should, talk to your friends and invite them on. Sometimes I prefer to check with them if they want to be invited on, because, sometimes you can just invite them on and maybe they don't really want to be part of the group. But
well, she's very active and very clear about, very good at doing research and stuff. So she's the only person that I really pushed. It's like, are we both going in this direction? Because I want to go the right. I don't want to spread my energy too far out. So I wanted to try to keep in touch with her because I know she is very active. So
yeah, well, she is part of
other people. Yeah, it takes a little bit of coaxing and see how motivated people are.
Well, and if you happen to think of somebody also, at the bottom of the takebackelections.org website, there's a little box that says invite anyone, I think it says.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just put in their email address and it will send them an email to inviting them.
Nice.
To join.
Yeah, and that way they can kind of decide and take some initiative. That's a great feature, Adria. I love that. Yeah. Adria's done a really awesome job, and to think that this isn't, she's not a web maker, and Kate, oh my gosh, I love the logo, the dots and everything. I wasn't sure at first, but I have to tell you a story about that, and then we'll share with the group at some point. It's a pretty amazing thing. We might just have to put the story on the website, actually.
Well, I'd like to hear the story now.
Yeah, I feel like I have to tell a particular woman first. And when I tell her, everyone can just be in suspense because, yes, it's pretty amazing story, actually. So, Colleen, thanks for joining us. Yes. Bruce, nice to see you. And I heard your post. I read your post. Colleen, you can check with the chat. Oh, no, you're on the phone. You should download Zoom. So that
Zoom?
Zoom. Z-O-O-M. Zoom. And
gotcha.
But anyway, yeah. Because you'll get more out of the phone calls, and you can participate in the chat and hear what other people are saying.
That sounds good. Yeah, I'm definitely catching up again.
Your mute is on, Bruce. You'll have to unmute yourself. Can anyone hear Bruce?
I heard him for a second. No,
faintly.
Now he's muted. Now he's not muted.
No.
You're very quiet, but we can.
Unmuted.
We can hear you faintly.
You must be far from the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
Get closer to the microphone.
I turned up the microphone and it.
Yes, turning it up helps.
That's better.
More. Maybe that's what was wrong with Joanne too. That one time.
All right. Well, I just wanted.
There, perfect.
It's working now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's louder. I think just turning it up helps a lot.
It's turning itself down. I've never had that before. So anyway, I just wanted to check because it was working last time, right?
Yeah, you're working. We can hear you now.
I guess I have to manually hold it in the higher position.
Well, you might have to if it doesn't like us. I feel like that commercial. We can hear you now.
Okay, well, I think I typed as much as I needed to say. That's not my only objection to RC, but it's one of the ones that I have a hard time imagining how it's going to be overcome. The other ones, you know, you can argue back and forth, but I just don't understand how you can have an auditable election and still vote RCV.
I pretty much agree with you. Like I said, though, I'm trying to remain open. And another thing is that because RCV is out of the barn now, it's kind of a challenge. And Carl, does seem to like it. He's also part of the Green Party, and the Green Party seems to like it. And I think that what our job is with all of these things that we're vetting is to remain neutral, but also just give it a good vetting because, the facts, hopefully people will be open-minded their own selves enough to, help us really come down with something that's going to work for us. Because like I said, what we're writing has to really be something that's, very, we just have to have the very best we can get in order for it to last 100 years or 200 years.
Well, and it's the biggest problem with the whole program is a problem with RCV. Obviously, we don't want to hold everything else back just because of that stumbling block. But on the other hand, we haven't passed RCV other than Maine in a few cities.
Yeah, I think.
So I think it's better not to implement the wrong thing and then have to go backward than it is. I'd rather stay with plurality until we get people convinced of the better system. So, but I'm also facing so much resistance within my own Green Party, and I have individuals like you and some others in the Green Party that are agreeing with me, but it's like, how do we overcome this whole tide of RCV support?
Yeah, you're right. So we'll work on that, just like we're working on the technology. We're kind of having those are two very testy places. But anyway, our host, Adria, needs to wind up our meeting. And I thank you so much, Adria, for being the, what do you call it? Sidekick for putting these on. Thank you for being the background host there, and everyone. So we'll talk soon and see you next Tuesday. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to have next Tuesday, but it will be continuing with the work. So thanks, and bring some friends, spread the words, get them on the Facebook group and on the website. So talk to you guys later. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Thanks.
Good night, folks.
Bye-bye, and love you guys. Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.
Night all.